Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So if you guys watched my most anticipated releases of April video, you might remember that I ended up putting VHS 94 into my honorable mentions. And I mentioned, like, if there's one in there that I'll probably get, it'll likely be that one. Because one, it's from a series that I've enjoyed in the past to varying degrees. Two, it's found footage, which is like my favorite subgenre. And then three, it was only $15 for the Blu-ray. So, lo and behold, even though my local Best Buy did not have it, I was able to order it off of Amazon and it arrived today. So I am excited to talk about this one. But rather than doing a traditional Blu-ray review on this, instead I thought it would be fun, given the nature of what this movie is, to do a rank and review video where I talk from my least favorite to my most favorite short or segment, is probably the better way to describe these, on this movie. So of all the 5 segments of VHS 94. So that's what we're going to do today. I will talk a little bit about the Blu-ray at the very end and give a final, like, overall rating, but for the most part, we're going to talk about all 5 of these segments, and I cannot wait to do that. So if you guys do have a second, please hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into my rank and review of VHS 94. Like I mentioned in the intro, I will go through these from my least favorite to my most favorite. So that means that coming in at number 5, or my least favorite short of the film, has to be the wraparound story, which is called Holy Hell, directed by Jennifer Reeder. So this was one that, frankly, I don't even really know what was going on here. This was a story of, like, this cult leader, or this cult in general, and this SWAT team is coming in, or I guess it was a SWAT team. They're coming in to do what they believe is a drug bust. And when they get there, they realize that, like, things are weird. They are, there's a lot of dead bodies. There's like this, like, church setup that has all these, mannequins. And it's just this really strange setting. And there is a voice that they can hear that's being played throughout the facility. It's just this really odd setting. And I thought that aspect of it was pretty interesting, but it doesn't really go anywhere. I'm not going to spoil anything. Obviously, this is going to be spoiler free, but where it goes at the end, it's like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And it ties things together a very little bit, just with what's actually going on, but it's so loose that at first I didn't even think it tied anything together at all. And then after thinking about it after the fact, I realized, well, I guess you could tie this in. But yeah, like, this one has the worst acting out of the bunch, specifically when they're doing a lot of the voiceover, because there's a lot of talk through, like, walkie-talkie. And when they're doing that voiceover, it just sounds so fake and forced. It's not very good. Even when they're not, like, just the actors they have in this one, I didn't think did the best job out of these 5. I thought it was the weakest when it comes to the acting and when it comes to the story. It just didn't really do anything. It didn't go anywhere, which is a complaint you might hear again as we go through these. But this one, it just felt, I hate to use the word pointless, but it was meaningless and it was pointless. And it's funny because in one of the special features, the director mentions, I think it was the Comic-Con special feature, the director mentions that, typically speaking, the least favorite of the bunch is the wraparound story. And so she was hoping that she lived up to the expectations with it this time around. But unfortunately for me, it just didn't work. It does a good job of setting the aesthetic and what they're going for with this, because obviously this is, you know, if I can pick it up here, this is VHS 94. So they're going for all in the same year. So everything is going to have this feel to it that it was done in 1994. And I think, you know, it does a good job with that because it's mostly, like, secluded from anything that would kind of spoil that it's not in 1994, that they're filming during a pandemic in, you know, 2020 or 2021. And so I think it does a good job there, but just everything else surrounding it and where it wraps up was super disappointing. And I really thought there'd be maybe an extra 5, maybe even an extra 10 minutes to kind of just do more with it. There are some nice gore shots, but when you compare it to the rest of this film, which is just filled with tons of blood and gore, so I'll talk about that a lot as I go through these 5 shorts. But even though there are a couple good shots from that, it's just, it doesn't make up for it. I really didn't enjoy this one. I thought it was just weak. I don't know how else to describe it. So I am giving Holy Hell 1 out of 5 stars, unfortunately, and it is going to be at the bottom of the list. Number 4 on my list is going to be the second segment, which was The Empty Wake, directed by Simon Barrett. And this one was interesting because Simon Barrett, in my eyes, is the biggest name that's tied to these in terms of the directors. And so I had high expectations coming into this. If you don't know, Simon Barrett is the writer. That's what he's most known for, is his writing. He did The Blair Witch, the latest one in the franchise, the reboot, whatever you want to call it. He wrote that. He wrote The Guest, which I just talked about recently because I recently picked it up on DVD. Love that movie. And then probably his biggest one, or the one that gets the most love, I would say, is You're Next, which honestly, the first time I saw that, I didn't love it, but I've been wanting to pick it up again because I want to give it a second chance. I feel like I just missed something. I honestly don't even remember much of it, so I want to give that one a second shot. But on top of that, he also wrote segments for VHS and VHS 2, so this is the first time he's directing one of these segments, and this one is relatively short. I want to say it was only like 10 or 12 minutes or so. And the setup here is that it's an overnight wake for this individual who has died in a horrific accident of some sort. At the beginning, the person who gets them all together, the mortician, I guess, he actually says that he, put him back in as human of a shape as possible. So they've decided to leave the duty for this overnight wake to this new employee who is this young girl, and she is there by herself. And of course, it's going to be creepy because there's this thunderstorm going on with like tornado watches and everything like that. But no one is showing up for this wake. Still, there are creepy things happening. And then it just kind of gets weirder from there. So I guess I'll leave the plot there. But I love the setup for this. Like, it's a really cool idea. I've never ever heard of an overnight wake before. Like, is that a real thing? Let me know down below. But so that aspect was just strange, but I understand why people weren't coming. They set that up well because of this storm that's out there. But like outside of that, it doesn't do a whole lot. It is a better segment than the wraparound, that is for sure, and it has like more to it, I guess, than that first segment, or the wraparound segment. But still, there's just something lacking here. It didn't do a whole lot once it got past this really cool premise. This is another one where like the special effects in this film overall, and particularly in this one, just looked awesome. There is a special feature on here that talks about how they did it a little bit, and it's exactly what you would expect. There's a lot of green screen work being done, but they did such a great job with it. And what's really cool about this one is basically they were filming in a Holiday Inn because this was during the pandemic, and they built 3 of the 4 walls, and that's how they, that's where they filmed this. And I think the set looks really good. It looked very believable as a funeral home. And so I thought that aspect of it was great. The acting in this one is fantastic. Our main character, she does a great job. She was actually local. This was all filmed in Canada, and so she was a local Canadian actress, and I thought she did a great job. She states in one of the special features that this was her first horror film, but you wouldn't know it. She was awesome in this. And so I think this one, again, just has a lot going for it, including an awesome writer. I was hoping he would be a great director, but for me, though there are really good things here, it just fell a little bit short. I wanted there to be just a little bit more. This is another one. Maybe it could have used an extra 5 minutes to kind of, throw some more in there to make it a little bit more interesting, because things go pretty much exactly where you would expect them to go, which I don't think was the intention, because it feels like one of those that was supposed to have some shock factor behind it. But if you're a horror fan, you probably have a good idea where this one is going. Oh, and one more thing with this one before I give you my star rating is that there is a bit of humor in it at the end, which like comes out of nowhere, because it is kind of this brooding, almost, it's going for creepy at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it turns to a little bit of humor at the end, and it just felt a little bit out of place. So in the end, it just ended up feeling a little bit more goofy than scary, and that was disappointing given what we had for like the first 6 or 8 minutes of this movie, so or of this short film anyway. So anyway, I'm gonna have to give this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's not bad, but it's not great, and I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. Coming in at number 3 is Storm Drain, directed by Chloe Okuno, and this was our first segment, not including the wraparound, of course. And this one I thought was pretty darn good. I'm very interested to see what else Chloe Okuno has in store for us in the future, because she definitely has a good eye for horror. So with this one, we are following this reporter who is sent out to do a story on Ratman, who is said to live in the storm drains underneath the city. And so they get there, they start trying to interview interview some of the locals. They phone back in saying, hey, we're done. But then they are told, no, you need to get some more footage by the storm drain. So they begrudgingly end up doing that. And of course, they start seeing these images behind the reporter. And so they want to go into the storm drain at that point. And that, of course, is when things just get kind of creepy and crazy. So, I will say, and I should have mentioned this in the last one, but the first person perspective when it comes to found footage, like, always gets me. It is just creepy to me. I don't know what's coming next. When the light is like very limited and you're turning, it's like anything can be there. And so I'm always on edge. So that works well here. And I think that my favorite aspect of this has to be, that comes in later, which this creature design, which I'm going to talk about a creature design in the next 3 of these, because the creatures in this movie are just crazy. And this was the first one, and it was really awesome. So we end up following these reporters down this creepy drain, like storm drain system. And of course, they see things, they run into people, and things just kind of pick up from there. And it's just a little bit crazy. So once you get into like the climax of this one, I thought, man, this is awesome. Like, this is doing a really effective job of being a creepy horror movie. And it doesn't really let up. Like, there's this really cool segment down in the system where you have our cameraman and our reporter kind of stuck down there, I guess I'll say. And I'll mention, I think the acting in this is fantastic. I think our main character, the reporter, does a great job. She just seems very believable for what she's doing in this movie. And then the cameraman is mostly, of course, behind the camera, but the voice acting, I guess, is what he does most. He does really well with it, unlike that wraparound segment. And when he's on screen, he's great as well. But I thought this one was just, I don't know, it's a really cool premise. And then again, we get to the end. We had this amazing creature design, and it just kind of ends. And it's like, no, like, I keep saying it, but maybe another 5 minutes and it could have been a little bit better for me. I was so disappointed when I thought it ended, because I was like, wait, you had all this build up to this awesome moment and then that's it. But then there's this kind of like little final epilogue almost at the end of this one. And that segment is just fantastic. It felt like something out of like They Live. It was awesome. I loved it. And it kind of took it up a notch for me, maybe half a star, even higher than I was thinking about rating this one, because it was so cool. The gore and the special effects on this were fantastic. I didn't notice like any CGI at all. I'm sure there was some, but I didn't notice it. I thought it just looked genuine to like 1994 shooting style for this like news broadcast that they were doing. It was awesome. It was just like a really fun segment that, again, I just wish did a little bit more to take it up that notch. But either way, I still really enjoyed this one. It is, my third favorite on this film. And so I ended up giving Storm Drain 3.5 out of 5 stars. So number 2 on my list is going to be the last segment, which is Terror, directed by Ryan Prose. So this one, it felt very close to home, I'll say that. And even before I realized what was going on, I said to myself, my goodness, this feels like a Michigan militia. One of those crazy people that are just like anti-government and doing terrible things because they think it's right. And that's exactly what this was, as it turns out, as the short goes on. But anyway, with this one, we are following this like militia group that is trying to do what they think will save the country. At least that's what they're citing. But of course, what they're going to do is blow up a federal building, which turns out the building they were trying to blow up is the McNamara building in downtown Detroit. So this really was close to home for me. But what was really cool about this was just how authentic it felt from not only this militia, which felt like, genuine, all the way to the look and feel of this. Out of all of the shorts, this one felt like they were using prosumer cameras from the mid-90s. Now, were they really? I don't know. Maybe it was a filter, but man, it felt like it was genuine. And I say prosumer, that is basically just like the middle ground between a consumer grade camera, something for you or I, versus a professional camera, like, that directors would use. This one, a prosumer, just falls in between those. While it felt like it was totally from the 90s, I don't know if it really was. They didn't get into that in the special features, but regardless, it doesn't really matter. It felt like it. And so because of that, it just had that nostalgic feel, that mid-90s nostalgic realistic feel that some of the other ones were missing a little bit. I think you got that a little bit with Storm Drain, but you are using professional cameras in Storm Drain because you're a news broadcast, so it just felt different. And I really loved the look and feel of this one. And I'll say, like, between this one and the first one, they could have been either way, honestly. I think what this one does really well, though, is practical special effects. There are a bunch of explosions in this one, which you wouldn't expect given what you're dealing with here, but they look awesome because they're real special, like they're real explosions, and they look great. And it just sets this one apart a little bit, makes it feel a little bit bigger than these others. I didn't even really talk about what's going on here. So this militia decides they need to blow up this federal building, and somehow, some way, they have stumbled upon this creature with radioactive blood, and that is how they are going to ignite this building into a blaze of glory. And so it is just insanity turned up to 11, and I loved it because of that. There's not a whole lot of, character development or anything like that, but it's a short film. What do you expect? This is a movie that opens with a bang, and it's like, oh my gosh, I did not expect that at all. And then that just kind of continues throughout here. And it's so much fun. It is just a really well done short, and I am very interested to see what else Ryan Prose has for us in the future, because he clearly has a knack for horror. Before I move on, though, I want to mention the creature design here was phenomenal. It looked so great. I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but these creature designs make it feel really high budget, even though we are dealing with a found footage film. The creatures just looked fantastic in this, and this is one that I actually liked the ending here. It kind of made sense to what was going on with the story, and it works. The other ones, the endings left a little to be desired, but here I think it worked. It's super quick and very conclusive, but it just works really well. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So I had to give Terror 4 out of 5 stars, and that one is going to be my second favorite, at least when you ask me today. So that means that my favorite VHS 94 segment is the third one, which is called The Subject, directed by Timo Tjahjantti. So this was absolutely insane, and it was fantastic. So let me first note that this is the only short on here that is subtitled, so that makes it stand out a little bit just because of that. And it's also one of, I think, the only one that doesn't seem to have any kind of filter over it to make it feel like it's set in 1994, which might be a negative to some people. The only way you can really place it in 94 is that the doctor in this movie mentions that it is whatever, August of 1994 or whatever. But other than that, this could have taken place at virtually any time. So with this one, we are following this, I don't even know if he's a doctor. He's a mad scientist, basically, whose goal is to essentially combine man with machine or woman with machine and make them survive. And of course, he's kidnapping people off the street to do this as test subjects, which gonna make him attractive to the law. And so we are following him at the beginning. He's kind of talking about what he's doing, and then the police eventually show up and things kind of pick up from there, I guess. And I wrote down at the beginning of this one, man, this is so slow. And this is the longest segment on here. At least I didn't take notes on the length, but I believe this one was the longest out of the bunch. And the first quarter of it really felt long. It dragged quite a bit, but it is so totally worth it because it sets up this whole second half of this, which just goes absolutely insane. So we follow this police group as they are in his laboratory, and these creatures, these Frankenstein style creatures that he's created, are trying to take them out. And so it's cat and mouse. Who's going to win between the police and these creatures? My goodness, this one is just so nuts. So again, the special effects on this are phenomenal. I will mention, this could be a bigger negative to some, but it's definitely CGI heavy, and that could affect some more than others. But I think even though it is pretty obvious that it's CGI, I think they still do a good job with it, especially considering that this is, a 15, 20-minute short film. And so, outside of that, even with that, I should say, the gore looks amazing. It is just so over the top and insane and fun to watch. So in the second half, it almost breaks down into you're playing an FPS, a first-person shooter video game. It just is insane. There are some like character relationships that they try to build a very little bit, and I say that in like the loosest definition of the word. But again, you don't need that. It's a short horror film. Like, it's just insane. You're watching it for the crazy blood and gore, and they do that really well. There are some shots in this that are just like, this could be framed on my wall because it's just such cool shots. And it's like, I really respect this director for what they were able to do here because it's so memorable. And that's why I ended up putting this one at the top of the list, because I think, you know, a week from now, a month from now, this is probably the one that I'll remember the most because it was just so insane. And so because of that, that's why this one ended up as my favorite. I definitely recommend this one. Again, like I may have said this about the last one, but if you don't even watch this entire film, like this is one that's worth seeking out on its own, much like Terror, because they are both just excellent short films and so much fun to watch, which, you know, that's what I'm wanting with my VHS movies. It's just fun, horror, gore-filled segments, and that's exactly what Terror and The Subject brought to the table. So the slowness at the beginning does hurt it a little bit. The fact that you can see some of the CGI or notice some of the CGI does hurt it a little bit, but still, overall, I had a blast with this. The whole second half more than makes up for it, and the ending is just like, it's bonkers. I don't know. It's just awesome. So you have to see it to believe it. So I ended up giving The Subject 4 out of 5 stars, and that is all 5 of VHS 94. So let's take a second to talk a little bit about this Blu-ray and give my overall star rating for this film. VHS admittedly suffers from the same thing that a lot of anthology films suffer from, and that's that it's a mixed bag. The wraparound I thought was not good at all, and there are a couple of mediocre shorts in here, but man oh man, the two that I loved, I really loved, and I would definitely recommend them recommend VHS 94 simply for those two segments. I think they were awesome. So to give an overall star rating of VHS 94, I'm just going to average my shorts, and that means that VHS 94 gets 3 out of 5 stars from me. And with that said, let's talk a little bit about this Blu-ray. I'll mention right now, I'm not even really going to talk about the audio and visual quality this time around because it doesn't matter. This is made to look like it's shot on VHS. Like, it's made to look bad purposely. There are a ton of filters on here that make it look older. So whether you're watching this on DVD or Blu-ray, I honestly don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. So if you want to save a few bucks, maybe grab the DVD. On the audio side, again, nothing to talk about. This is actually one that I have multiple setups that I can watch with like genuine surround sound, but this was one TV I watched it on did not have that. I just had a sound bar up front and it sounded totally fine. Nothing to note there. So I'm not going to give a star rating for the AV this time because it didn't really matter on this Blu-ray. That said, the special features are surprisingly packed. There are quite a bit here and you can see them on the back here. So I'm just going to talk through some of these. There's a behind the scenes of VHS 94. That's like 25 minutes long. Unfortunately, they didn't have the director of The Subject on there like at all. That was very disappointing, but they do have the other directors and it's pretty standard for a behind the scenes segment. On top of that, they have like a 30-minute Comic-Con panel, and this was during the pandemic, so it's Comic-Con at home. And so it's all done via like WebEx or Skype. And that one, fortunately, the director of The Subject is there, and so I really liked that one. That one, like I said, it's about 30 minutes, and I thought that one was actually kind of more interesting to watch than the behind the scenes one. And then there is commentaries, which I didn't listen to. I've said it before. I don't really do commentaries, but there is commentaries with the directors and the producers. There's actually a second commentary for The Empty Wake with Simon Barrett himself, the director. And then there is deleted and extended scenes, VHS 94 special effects with Patrick McGee. That was super boring. There was like 3 different segments. One was 5 minutes, one was 2 minutes, one was like 1.5 minutes. That was super boring, not worth your time at all. They just kind of go through some of the special effects in the film, specific to like the creatures of the movie, basically. And then there was The Empty Wake visual effects. I thought was pretty good. I watched that one. That's why I found out that they were filming in a Holiday Inn, and I thought that was cool to watch. So I mean, there's also behind the scenes images, which is literally just still images, which I went through like 5 and said, yep, that's enough for me. So the special features on this are surprisingly stacked, I guess, for what you're getting here. You get, you know, over an hour of special features between everything that's on here, which is not a ton. And that, of course, is not including the commentaries, but you do have that as well. So yeah, if you're a commentary person, you get a couple of those, so it might be worth picking up just for those. But like I said, didn't listen to those, so I can't really give an opinion there. But yeah, so I think the Blu-ray release overall is good. If the DVD has those special features, which I honestly don't know if they do, but if it does, then just grab the DVD though, given the picture quality on this. If not, if you are someone who's already seen this on Shudder and really liked it, then definitely you'll probably want to check out these special features, even though they're not super in depth, and it's going to be a lot of, oh, they were great to work with, things that you hear a lot, but you know, still, there's always some interesting tidbits to be picked up on these. So yeah, you know, overall, I think this is a worthwhile Blu-ray that I'm definitely happy to add alongside VHS, VHS2, and VHS Viral. And I'll actually make mention, Broke Horror Fan, if you're watching this when I release it, is releasing this on VHS in the coming days here. So check out their Twitter account if you're interested in picking this one up on a legitimate VHS cassette tape, which is pretty cool. I actually have VHS2 on cassette and Blu-ray. It was a combo pack, but that's the only one. So yeah, anyway, I'm rambling now. VHS 94, happy to add this one to the collection. I'm gonna give this 3 out of 5 stars. All right, so those were my thoughts on VHS 94. So I enjoyed this one. Like I said, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but still overall an enjoyable movie. But I want to hear from you guys. Oh, you know what? I didn't even mention it. This one actually has reversible cover art, which is always cool. For people that, like myself, I think that's always fun. Should have mentioned that earlier, but totally forgot. Anyway, if you guys have seen this one, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. What was your favorite and least favorite segment? Was the wraparound terrible for you like it was for me? I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this one down in the comments below. And are you thinking about maybe picking this one up now that I've talked about it, or maybe skipping it now that you've heard me talk about it? Let me know what you're thinking down in those comments below. I always appreciate all of that support. But as always, guys, if you enjoyed this one, please give it a like down below. That engagement really does help me out. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, graphic novels, manga. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.